In the United States, someone's name is added to the National Organ Transplant waiting list every 10 minutes. That amounts to more than 120,000 men, women, and children in need of a life-saving transplant. And when a match does finally come available, it can sometimes be all the way across the country. For heart transplants, the usual way of transporting the organ is on ice, in a cooler, similar to the one you take on a picnic. And since the first heart transplant in the late 1960s, technology has come a long way. And now, it might be catching up to organ preservation by keeping hearts alive outside the human body, in a machine designed to function just like we do. This is the Cornish coastline in England. 27-year-old Lee Hall lives here with his wife and young son. Surrounded by this beautiful landscape, he doesn't get out to enjoy it much, at least not yet. Lee has spent much of his life in hospitals.
My life started off okay until I was around 2 years old and was diagnosed with leukemia, which went on for quite a long time and luckily pulled through. When I turned 14, I had a echo done on my heart and came out that I had a problem with my heart then.
The walls of Lee's heart were too thin, and his heart was failing. It had to work even harder to pump blood through his body. Doctors at Harefield Hospital in London implanted a mechanical pump, but these devices are not typically long-term solutions. Lee would need a new heart.
He was on the urgent waiting list for a heart transplant.
Dr. Andre Simon is the director of transplantation at Harefield Hospital. In the United Kingdom, the biggest issue is a shortage of suitable donor hearts and an aging population.
The current situation in the United Kingdom is that we have only very, very few hearts. And you're only transplanted when you're on the urgent waiting list. No one really gets a heart who is on the normal waiting list unless you're very small and have a specific blood group.
There's been a lot of focus on helping transplants succeed after they are complete. For instance, getting the immune system to accept the donor organ instead of attacking it. But what about before all that? What about the way the heart is preserved before it even reaches the recipient?
The heart, in many cultures and many parts of the world is really what's perceived as the most important organ that keeps every part of the body alive.
Waleed Hassanin began his career as a heart surgeon. As a junior resident, he went on an organ retrieval, getting a donor heart for transplant from another hospital. Waleed was in charge of a cooler. That's when he realized just how rudimentary the transportation of this vital organ can be.
It really upset me that at the time, to become a cardiac surgeon, still till today, you need to spend 10 to 11 or 12 years in training. And I looked at this and I said, from a selfish standpoint, that I'm going to spend 12 years of my life learning how to protect this organ. But when it comes to heart transplantation, which is the pinnacle of cardiac surgery, the heart is just going to be thrown in this igloo box.
Waleed left medicine to start a company called TransMedics. The aim? To change the way organs are preserved and delivered for transplant. The traditional way is cold storage, flushing the heart with a solution that drops its core temperature and putting it in a cooler on ice. This method can have limitations due to organ decay, time, and distance of retrieval.
We're losing a lot of organs because of that time and distance limitation. This is why there are a lot of organs go unutilized. In fact, we're only utilizing 2 or 3 out of every 10 organs every year.
To improve that, TransMedics developed a device called the Organ Care System. The machine is designed to replicate our human functions as closely as possible by keeping the organs alive outside the body. This is video of a heart transplant from the University of Washington in Seattle, one of 7 hospitals in the United States participating in a clinical trial of the Organ Care System. Now, we want to warn you, the beating heart in the device may be graphic for some viewers. Unlike the cold storage in a cooler, this heart is still warm. It's beating, and it's being fed by a steady stream of oxygenated blood and nutrients. All the while, the organ's vitals are monitored.
In the early days, it was really, it's a paradigm shift. But as the technology evolves, as we gain experience, as we generate evidence, obviously the resistance becomes lower and lower. So in the beginning, of course, it was really trailblazing, trying to convince transplant surgeons that cold is not your friend, and actually we can change things.
The organ care system is still experimental in the United States, but it's already approved for use in other countries like Australia and the United Kingdom. In the UK, Hereford Hospital now uses it for all their heart transplants, including the one for Lee Hall. Last summer, Lee received a heart transplant. Dr. Simon was his surgeon.
I think we will see a significant change in technique and technology. The last step that we've taken is we've now taken hearts from donors who have died from heart arrest. We now have been able to take those hearts and restart them outside of the body in that system. So that's another revolutionary step.
With cold storage, the heart is ideally transplanted in under 4 hours. It has a low tolerance to the cold because it has to function immediately upon transplantation. In the organ care system, the time window has tripled, which has led to an increase in viable donor hearts.
The time, again, between stopping the heart in the donor and starting the heart in the recipients, we have up to 12 hours now.
For Lee Hall, it's a second chance. Less than a year after his transplant, he's still not 100% and has frequent checkups at Hereford. But he went from being on borrowed time to making long-term plans with his son.
Then my goals are to literally strengthen my body up and get myself back to a normal life again. It did feel weird at first that, someone's passed away and given something to me to stay alive, but without that person, I wouldn't be here now. So I thank them for changing my life.